Well, I was looking at the new Neutrog newsletter that came out, and Dr. Uwe Stroeher, very theatrical performance, Mr. Stroeher. How are you?
Yes, not too bad, Graham. Well, thank you very much for having me back on your show for another year.
Oh, look, honestly, mate, we get so many inquiries about all the different things, but I've just been on in fact, I flew to Adelaide and joined the Queen Elizabeth on a garden cruise, and there were so many people asking me about all your products, and that's the thing that's changed gardening. And I had a lot of questions in a Q&A session one night, which went for a couple of hours instead of one. And people are just really interested and fascinated about what's happening in the soil. And, as I said, well, that's what you and I have been talking about for years now, is it's not so much what's above, but what's going on in the soil. So welcome back. It's great to have your input in the show once again, mate.
Yeah, thanks for that, Graham. And I think you're correct. I think in many ways people have really embraced the whole idea of the microbes in the soil and that great diversity that's there. So, as you may suspect, over the break I've been busy reading all things bacteria and fungi, and I've also enjoyed, obviously, a nice break with family and friends. And it did give me time to find some new discoveries, which I'm hoping we can touch on this year. Bacteria that would rather eat a plastic bag than, say, break down leaves, or new antibiotics and antifungal agents lurking in your soil ready to be used for human health and maybe for plant health. So all of those findings are really only possible because of that diversity of organisms and the fact that, like many of us, me including, there's so many things we really don't know about the world of microbiology.
If you can find a bacteria that eats plastic bags, mate, you can retire. Sounds like we're in for some interesting chats this year, but as you mentioned, diversity is so huge. So how does that relate to our soils and our home gardens?
Well, I need to really put that into some context. The first thing to remember is that the bacteria and the fungi, and in particular their spores, are microscopic. So on the head of a pin, you can get about 1 billion bacteria.
Struth.
So that's a huge number. And in a cup of healthy soil, there are more microbes than there are people on the planet. So
good gracious.
The numbers are enormous, and then there's all the different types of bacteria and fungi. So the current estimate is that bacteria make up about 75% of all the species on the planet. So when we think, we've got 2 or 3 million different insects, that, isn't really important compared to the bacterial number. So in a teaspoon of soil, you can have as many as 3,000 different microbes. So, and that then varies depending on the soil type, the climatic condition, the plant that you're currently growing in that soil, the plants that are grown beforehand. So it's a massive soup of diversity, and it's that diversity that's really critical in order to those microbes to carry out those functions, so breaking down organic matter, producing plant growth hormones, and even secreting those antibacterial and fungal agents. So, suffice to say, no single microbe can do it all, and it's definitely a team effort from those little critters.
Isn't it interesting? I've spent 2/3 of my life following on from my grandfather and my grandmother and others that I work with and people I looked up to, and it was all about nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. But in fact, it's not. Diversity is critical in what's happening in the soil. It's not just nutrition, which we thought it was, and we've spoken about this before. So how do gardeners get and then maintain this diversity of all these millions of critters that are in the soil?
Well, it's all about, we talk about soil health all the time, and that really means avoiding the use of harsh and pure chemicals. Previously, you spoke about things like the organic insect control, so that's really important, that type of thing. And so use products such as compost to feed your soil microbes, organic fertilizer, so things like Seamungus, and organic mulch like Whoflungdung. Those products then bring that soil to life, and they don't destroy any pre-existing microbes that are already there.
We had a call last weekend, and a chap said, look, I've been using this Whoflungdung, but I've got all this grey stuff all over my soil now. And I said, great. He said, what do you mean great? I said, well, that means that the Whoflungdung is full of life, and it's bringing beneficial bacteria and fungi back into your soil. Oh, he said, oh. I said, well, if you want to dig it through, that's what it's all about, using products like Whoflungdung and Seamungus. listeners, is a great way to ensure that your soil stays healthy. And, of course, Whoflungdung and Seamungus are available from Bunnings, other hardware outlets, and, of course, all the good garden centres. Great to have you back, and great to get back dirty into the soil again, Uwe.
Not a problem, Graham. It's always a pleasure to chat to you and to your listeners, and I really love our little Saturday morning conversations on all things soil microbiology.
Well done. Take care. Talk to you next weekend.
Cheers. Bye-bye.